everyone, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I am Sarah Soliman, and I'm so excited about today's topic. We are talking healthy relationships in the workplace, something we've all sort of dealt with in one way or another. And who better to talk about this topic than Janie Lacy, owner of Life Counseling Solutions. So Janie, thank you so much for being here. And we want to talk about what exactly healthy relationships in the workplace mean.
You know, I always like to start with that we're all people and we all have baggage, we all have experiences in relationships, whether they're healthy or unhealthy, and we roll that right into the workplace. So a healthy relationship in the workplace to me means that you are secure in who you are and you have a tolerance for conflict and you know how to treat people with dignity even in the face of negative emotions. And not a lot of people, unfortunately, get to rise to that type of position. We have to have a lot of experiences and insight to look into our own behaviors in order to really have healthy relationships in the workplace, because we're dealing with all different types of personalities, all different types of ways of dealing with conflict. Some people are very assertive, aggressive, passive-aggressive. So all of those different personalities, along with all of their baggage, comes right into the workplace. And it could be a recipe for really learning to have healthy relationships, or it could be a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, and I think we've all sort of experienced that in some way. So let's talk about when you have a difficult boss, maybe a supervisor that happens to be more of like that aggressive personality type. How do you address certain challenges with that kind of behavior in the workplace?
You know, when I think about difficult bosses, I like to think about the 3 Ps. That we have to be proactive, especially if we know that they're difficult, and we have to plan our interactions with them, along with having a positive attitude. So if we look at being proactive, we have to think about, we have decided that they're difficult for certain reasons. So we can probably predict some of their behavior. So if we kind of increase our tolerance for being able to have interactions with them and not be reactive, but to respond to them, we can have a better result with them. It's kind of like managing up. But then also planning. So if we know that we have anxiety every time we come into contact with that boss, we can plan our interactions with them and almost to a certain degree rehearse what we're going to say to them. I always tell people to have that sandwich approach. Really flatter your boss and then give them whatever the meat is, whatever that conversation you need to have, and then end again by thanking them for taking their time and talking to you or hearing what you have to say. But then also having a positive attitude, because if you're coming in and you're kind of feeding off of that energy, sometimes it can create more of a negative situation for yourself. So I like to think of it as the 3 Ps.
I love that, the 3 Ps. Those are vital to remember. Now, when you're a business owner and your job is to, 1, run a business, but then 2, ensure that your employees are, getting along with one another. You're hiring the right personalities, and some are, obviously, all personalities are very different. So how do you sort of stay proactive in that sense, using the 3 Ps, as a business owner and ensuring that there are healthy relationships within your workplace?
Well, in my organization, I have 11 employees. So I realize everyone has different personalities, different strengths that they bring to the table. And I believe in a strength-based organization. So everyone kind of works from their strengths, which then makes them feel a little bit more invested into whatever is going on in the organization. And then for us in particular, and I believe a lot of organizations, it's really good to do this, but to have times where it's outings, where you're having fun. In our organization, we just recently did a ropes course and a zip line, and just laughing together and encouraging each other outside of the office. It just brings so much more of an energy that brings that tribe and that team together. So planning times where there could be things outside of the office or even lunches in the office, but pairing people up, depending on the organization, to pair people up based off of their strengths, because people are more invested and they're more likely to be looking forward to doing whatever they're doing.
Sure, and for women, sometimes in the workplace you run into situations where if you happen to be new in an organization, a woman might feel intimidated by your strengths. So how do you break that barrier of intimidation and befriend her?
So if you're intimidated by someone else's strengths, the best thing to do is to first look and see what's going on inside of you. Because if we look at outside of ourselves and we're looking at and comparing ourselves to other people, it's only going to have the reverse effect. We're going to continue to feel worse about ourselves, and we may not be as productive. So it's important that there's a certain level of self-awareness so that we can interact with her and realize that she brings strengths to the table, but so do you. And really bringing those things together sometimes can make you feel not as intimidated, because sometimes we tell ourselves narratives in our head. So we'll see someone, we see something that we like about them, and then we make up a story about them compared to us. It's the comparison game. So if there's some level of self-awareness, but also really being able to say, you know what, these are things that I bring to the table, these are my strengths, these are her strengths, and sometimes just having that complementary relationship can lessen any type of intimidation, especially among women in the workplace.
And to that point, how do you, what advice do you have to leverage your skill set in a sense that, you know what your strengths are, you're walking into an organization, you know what you have to offer, but your strengths may be similar to a colleague of yours. So without creating, again, that level of competition or intimidation, how do you leverage your skill set slowly but surely to ensure that you're growing within the corporation, but you're also not causing any tension amongst your colleagues?
The best way to leverage your strengths is because everyone's different. So even though someone may have the same strengths and the same skill set, your personality may be different from them. The way that you communicate, there's going to be other natural abilities that you have that you can put on top of whatever your skill set, and that's going to make you different and unique. Because even though we can both be doing the same exact thing, you can have something that will be different from the other person, and being able to accentuate that will be very important. And sometimes it's subtle, but the subtle differences make the big differences.
Perfect. And as a business owner, how do you actually address, if you do see some tensions arising amongst your employees, how do you address those situations?
I think the most important thing is that people are adults in the workplace, but if something is repetitive, there has to be a level of intervention. So being able to find out what's going on, because as healthy as the leadership is, sometimes as healthy as the employees will be, and vice versa. So to not ignore it, I hear so many times when people feel ignored, they have the same conflict over and over and over again, and the bosses ignore it, it just creates resentment. And if someone's creating resentment, at some point they're going to be checked out, and then it becomes too late. So I'm a big believer that when we see conflict in the organization, that we have to nip it in the bud very quickly by addressing it. And depending on how you address it depends on the conflict. Sometimes in a staff meeting, talking about whatever policies or things that may be causing conflict, or if it's just two people and their personalities, repositioning them in the organization and seeing if they're working from their strengths in their positions, or sometimes having that come to Jesus meeting where you bring everyone together and working it out. So depends on the situation, but I do believe the common denominator in any situation is that it has to be addressed directly, swiftly, so that the employees can feel important.
Great takeaways, Janie. Thank you so much for joining us on this segment. And we will have resources at the bottom of the description box, so you can make sure that you learn more about healthy relationships in the workplace from Janie and what exactly that means. And make sure you tune in next Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern as you find out what being a nomad is like, working from anywhere in the world. Thanks for joining us.
That's where we come in and we learn what is the loophole, where is the problem inside of your process.
How does outsourcing alleviate that anxiousness?